Welcome to the podcast. So for this week, um, me and Daniel have both been pretty busy. I've got midterms going on, and he's got he's doing a moot. He was doing a moot this
Yep.
week for his
Yep.
law school, and so we're gonna keep this episode somewhat relaxed. But today we want to talk about. I think It's gonna be kind of an interview style. I'm gonna ask Daniel some questions about Australia. So this episode's about Australia. Um, Daniel, you've lived in Australia for how many years now?
Now this is my third year. So
Third year in
3 years in.
Australia,
Yep. Yep.
and you moved to Australia from the States where you
Yep.
were going to high school,
Yep.
and now you're in Australia. You've been in Australia for college. Um, so basically, and I live in America right now. I'm American. um, and so I'm gonna just we're gonna get an idea of what Australia is like from your perspective, coming from America, being originally from China, um, and then also, you know, from kind of like an outside perspective, like from from my perspective, because I actually visited Australia with
Yeah.
you back in 2016 for like 10 days.
I believe, by the way, I think it's 2017. It's when we went
2017? Okay.
March, spring break that
Okay.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, I always mix up the years. We've traveled a few different places. Um, but anyways, so my first question to you is first and foremost, very broadly,
Yeah.
why did you move to Australia?
Um, I think we kind of just in relation to this question, we kind of talked about it in the first episode as well. It was kind of out of my hands. You know, parents had a change of occupation, and just happened to be a job here, right? And I was obviously going to not be able to finish high school because I was leaving in 2017 regardless after that school year. But obviously I was able to finish high school luckily and uh, start going to university here in Australia. So really, I mean, it was really sad for me, I think, because obviously I have built so many great relationships back in the States. I see, you guys, some of our friends, I see some of the people that I've met, my host families and stuff are like families to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even your family have been treating me so well. It's just I'm very grateful with that. But so I was really sad, but just out of my hands, so had to make the best out of it.
Mm-hmm. So I guess let's take like a see if you can kind of take a trip down memory lane,
Yeah.
because I never really got to ask you or really talk that much about your first year in Australia, because you graduated a year ahead of me. So I
Hmm.
was still in high school in Ohio, and we were just busy
Yeah.
kids in school. And so I don't know when you first went and arrived in Australia, knowing that you were now living there,
Hmm.
just what was that like? What was your living situation at the time? Making friends there, because I guess you were doing you were kind of in
Yeah.
between full-time college student but not, because I don't know,
Yeah.
I forget exactly,
Yeah.
but you can
Yeah.
fill in
Yeah.
those holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think um I think as I got off the airport, obviously my dad was there to pick me up from the airport, and luckily, as you talked about, we've been to Australia together, right?
Right.
That same
So that
year.
wasn't your first time there.
Right, right.
Right.
So I had previously a pretty good understanding. And then in 2016, when my dad first got the job, I went and visited him during the summer. So at that point, that would be my third time touching down in Australia.
Right.
But obviously, I think just with anything like of that magnitude in life, it's I think it's pretty scary at first, right? Because you're the only one, you're packing up all your stuff, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're in another country, right?
Right.
And like there's this completely new life, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think, yeah. I mean, my first impression, to be honest, was was the F word, and then was like, why are there so many of my people here, right? Because people from mainland China is the largest like ethnic ethnic group in Australia, other than I guess English people.
What's
So
considered English? Like in Australia, does that mean that their ancestors came from
yeah,
England?
from England, yeah. So that's like the original, which frankly, there's not much of them at all. Because I believe a lot of the even Caucasians in Australia is from another place originally. It's like either from
Mm,
Eastern Europe, different areas of the world.
right.
So yeah, like so there's a large population of Chinese people in Australia, and Asians make up close to 20% of the population in Australia. I believe the last time I checked was around 18. So yeah, there's a significant amount of people that look like me, which was kind of a shocker because I think we all know this. Back in Ohio, to say it, it's like I feel like it's me and those people that sells Chinese food that opens the Chinese restaurant are the only ones that are like Asian. That's how I felt, honestly. It's like
Mhm.
Asian. It's very rare in Ohio, right? There's not a lot of Asian in Ohio, and then
Right.
even in schools, none of them really. They've all,
A lot of the
they've
Asians there
yeah,
are second generation.
it's
They're
second, third, or some
yeah,
of some of them where like the kids doesn't even look Asian anymore, right?
yeah,
Because of the mix, right?
right.
So yeah, that was my first impression. Was there's a large amount of Chinese people in Sydney, and if if I was someone that's from China and like had pretty much no English, I reckon I'll be all right there.
Yeah.
That's like that's the crazy part about it is I think
Do you
if
think
I
you would
drag
need to learn English like eventually if you're going to live there, or do you think you could kind of
no, not at
exist?
all, not at all.
Wow.
I really do think obviously there's gonna be some stuff like employment and like different things that hinders how far you go in life, right?
Right.
But if you're someone satisfied, working in a factory job, working at I don't know something as a janitor, like no disrespect to those people, but like just someone who's working a job where speaking isn't really required, and you go through the train wherever you work, you drive or go through the train and then go back to your home area,
Hmm.
which they're like 20 like 10 different like Chinese suburbs in Australia where there's plenty of Chinese people, you know and then where all those other like ethnic suburbs with a lot of either Arabs or like Vietnamese or Koreans, there's still Chinese people. So yeah,
Hmm.
like I like my dad. You know my dad. He's not. His English is pretty bad. He's fine there, right?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he was living in like a more remote area. He didn't even live in Sydney, the greater Sydney metropolitan area. He lived in
Hmm.
up north, where it's like a complete area called Central Coast.
That's
right?
more probably
Where
white
this,
up
yeah, where
there.
this it's like more suburban,
Yeah.
right? So he was fine. So yeah, I'd say you'll be all right. For all the Chinese people that doesn't speak English, which they're not gonna listen to our podcast anyways, but just saying, like, come over, y'all will be fine.
I
And
read
then
recently that
yeah,
that just literally like a foreign policy magazine and a couple of Wall Street Journal article
yeah,
like from a
yeah,
day ago were saying that relations with China and Australia are souring a little bit from a long, almost 2 decades of pretty good relationship with each other. I don't know if you've seen any of
yeah. I
that
mean,
just there. If you felt that at all?
not at all. No,
No,
not
nothing's
at
really
all.
changed on
There's
the
too
ground.
many of us. There's too many of us to have anything. There's Australia is, in my opinion, is too diverse to have any of that stuff. It's
Yeah,
like
it's very diverse.
before I even talk about like Chinese people, Caucasians literally threw like killed indigenous people and like took their land,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when the English first came, they basically called Australia terrace nullius, terrace nullius, which means like no one has inhabited the place.
Mm-hmm.
But then like not really, because indigenous people were there and they just didn't
Right.
see them as people.
Right.
So like even that's like a thing in Australia, right? Where it's like a big national topic, kind of like the black versus white in America thing, right? So it's like I don't know. I think it's too diverse for like too much conflict.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's all right because I mean Australia kind of just follows what America's doing anyways. That's
Yeah.
always been kind of their mo. Like like our foreign minister would say whatever that coincides with Mike Pompeo, right? It's like it's not very new,
So do you
and
think
that also depends on what governments in power. Depends on which one. Some are better with China than others. So
in respect to I just don't follow Australian news
yeah,
that much. I just
yeah,
don't really know what's going on.
yeah.
Do you think uh Australia's relationship with China is in their approach is different than the United States approach? I mean, obviously there's going to be, but in terms of just like normal
Right.
public, you know,
I think
personas and
yeah.
feelings, do you think that Australia is closer to China or or no? I don't know.
I think it's more difficult to go completely haywire
Right.
than the States because like in the States it's like the clash of two ideological differences, right? Or it's
Mhm.
like it's a massive clash at a whole lot of different levels. Whereas in Australia, I think like China, like as a government, has or just Chinese people and like businesses, international students, schooling, a lot of their economy, like coal, Australia exporting coals to China, that's like one of their biggest things, right? It's
Mhm.
like they need China. It's like
Right.
they need China to trade with. It's not like America where there's where frankly there's sufficient amount of people to where if we don't deal with one country in particular, even if it is China, we'll be okay. Whereas I
Right.
don't think if Australia just completely shut it down, like they're gonna be okay.
That's why I think
They don't have
that's why
that.
I think
They don't have that type of
Australia,
power.
yeah, that's why I think Australia is such a unique country because of its geographic location and its ideological tilt.
Yeah.
It's almost like an extension of like it's a technically one of the original or Commonwealth
Yeah, it's
countries
a Commonwealth country.
of
Yep.
Britain.
It still is. Yep.
And so in that way, it shares a lot of similarities, at
Yeah.
least historically, with the
Yeah.
United States,
Yeah.
with Canada,
Yeah.
all these places. But it happens to be located in a particular hemisphere of the world where the ideologies surrounding it tend
Yeah.
to be different than, your
Yeah.
standard
Yeah.
British influenced common law.
Yeah.
And so it's like I read an article on Wall Street Journal, and it was kind of a right-wing person saying that we should reignite the Anglosphere where
Yeah.
we, really embrace relationships with, United States, Canada,
Yeah.
UK, um, all the and Australia, all the English speaking places
Mm-hmm.
with, that history.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely was kind of a right wing argument saying that, because China's more aggressive, nowadays, and,
Yeah.
just in terms of expanding its reach,
Yeah.
that, but, but yeah, the difference between all those other countries and Australia is that Australia is located
Yeah.
closest, at least I think, in proximity to,
Yeah.
the powers that article was worried about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, even if we look at Canada, right? Like
mhm.
very close to the States, they have a lot of Chinese people and like a lot of Asians as well in Canada. It's pretty
Do they
similar to
have more
Australia
than the
from what
States,
oh,
Canada?
definitely by percentage wise. Percentage wise, definitely more.
Do you know
Because
why
there's
that
just a
is?
lot more because there's just a lot more people in the States.
Right.
It's like there's a lot more Caucasians in America. It's
Right.
like if all three countries have the same amount, equal amount of immigrants, America have a larger people pool. So it's harder for Asians to be super high in America because there's more like white black people. But then
Right.
in Australia or Canada, it's like there's 20 million people. So it's like if you have more immigrants, all of a sudden the proportions, it's like
Right.
what
So you're talking percentages. You're not
yeah,
talking hard numbers. If we're talking
no,
about mainland Chinese citizens in Canada or in America, is there
mainland Chinese
more,
citizens.
or mainland Chinese people
Yeah,
from mainland China
yeah, yeah,
who are perhaps working
yeah,
or residing
yeah,
in Canada?
yeah.
Is there more by hard? Do you know if there's more, like, by hard number than in the United States?
I, I'm not sure. I mean, just based on the fact that America is such a big country and it's way bigger than
Right.
like all the other ones. I
Right.
I would probably guess America have more Chinese people, strictly speaking.
Right.
But then obviously the difference is there's a lot more there's a lot more white people in America as well, right?
Mm.
So yeah, it doesn't look that significant, like if we look at it, you know, broadly. But then I think it's a little more significant if in Australia and Canada and like those other like I guess Commonwealth country is it's a little different, but um yeah, I think just speaking of that, another thing I can think of was almost I think in Ohio everyone's pretty uniformed, like pretty homogenic, right? It's like I feel like there's only one culture. There's not a lot of sways. But then I think in Australia, what I found is, there's just so many different cultures where I
That could
think
also
it's
be
kind
part
of
of just where you
yeah
where you are. You're more in
in
an
the
urban
States.
area
Yeah. And I think
versus
maybe like California would be a little different, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like the level of acceptance towards Asian people is a little different. Where in America, imagine a tourist group were in Ohio. Like how like everyone would be looking because
Nobody goes
they're
to
like, what?
Ohio
Yeah, no
for
one
tourism.
like what's going on, right? Like imagine if there's like 300, 400 people going to the Wright Pat Air Force Museum. That would be a scene. But then,
Yeah,
Australia is like they're so used to that stuff. It just doesn't
right.
really matter. But yeah.
Well, let's talk about school
Yeah.
because that's kind of where you spend most of your time um, in in Australia, is in school, interacting with other students.
Mm-hmm.
What like when you first started like taking classes and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, did you see a difference in the like the education
Yeah.
styles?
Yeah. So I guess they're what I've been doing is just they have a lot of tutorials, right? Whereas smaller classes, kind of like high school, but then they're all gonna like everyone will have the same like. There's not a lot of closed book stuff where it's everyone can study whatever they want to study. Like it's all there. Whereas you're not relying on the teacher that much.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously, so it's you have to push yourself internally, I guess, more because there's not a lot of outside push to
Hmm.
do something, right? And then obviously, I started first year in law school, so the people kind of I talked to were either like older people that are doing like that had a degree that's working, that's right now trying to get a law degree later on in life, or first year law students. And
Mm-hmm.
like some of them are pretty high level people because as you know, Australia go through kind of the same system as China has is how good test score you get. It's like a very uniform test.
Mm.
And then like law school typically only like at least for UTS I know, if you want to do law you have to be above 97. And if you do like maybe finance and law together, it had to be 99 or something. Meaning that like 3 people out of 97 Australian kids that's taking it will get it. We'll get it.
Wow. So what do the other 97% do if they
Oh, it's
fail?
just it's percentage based. So like if you score maybe around 80s, you're accepted into other courses. So just
Mm-hmm.
depends. Depend on how how high of a score you get will dictate what type of degree you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Is
And what
the
type of and what level of university you get to go into as well.
all right? Is the makeup, demographic wise, of your school pretty consistent with just the um, makeup of the surrounding area community, like in terms of
Um, well, I would say the surrounding is even a little more. I would say there's more like Caucasian Australians in the school than actually in areas around because our
hmm,
school's next to Chinatown.
okay.
So, there's so the demographic isn't you know, but yeah, no, because in our universities we don't have dorms and stuff, right? We have student housings and stuff, but they're not put out by the school, or the school doesn't play a prominent role in where you live. They help you with different things. You can rent through the school, but like it's not like where everyone stay on campus.
All
So
right.
obviously in suburbs around Sydney it's more diverse, right? Where we
Mm-hmm.
kind of talked about it. Different suburbs have more of these type of people, that type of people. So yeah, yeah.
So I guess one of the other questions, like in terms of the Like, do you think, because in America, a lot of the big public universities are very, you know, diverse.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the paramounts of, American universities. I guess I'm just wondering, is Australia the same in that regard, or is it even more? And does it feel like one experience for all students, or is there multiple college experiences going on depending on what demographic you fall into?
Eh, are you referring to more just in relation to some kids partying more, where some kids are just there for studying? Is that what you're kind of referring to about the different
Yeah, I mean, like
experiences?
it could go into that in terms of just what is the culture like? I guess I'm trying to compare and
Yeah,
contrast the culture
yeah,
university
yeah,
like America versus Australia,
right.
and like, do Australian kids at university take as much pride in their school, or just kind of that question.
Yeah, I mean, so our university, so just speaking about pride, right? It's like we're right next to universities, like we're pretty close to University of Sydney, which is the best university in Australia, like arguably like top three, which is clearly better than our uni. And then University of New South Wales, which is like a top five university, which is still better than ours. So in that sense, we do kind of take pride in it a little bit. Like we do
Hmm.
recognize, but then we also recognize we're a pretty good university because there are some other like worse ones around as well. So yeah, like we're kind of in the middle. Like we're okay,
That's kind
you
of
know?
how I feel about
Yeah,
my school where I'm at,
yeah,
because you have up north, you got Northwestern,
yeah,
and down south you have University of Chicago, which are
yeah,
both on like the top
yeah.
10 or 20
Right,
in
right.
the United States.
Yeah.
And then you have my school in the middle, which is it's it deserves credit because it's in that same neighborhood area geographically as these other big schools.
Mm-hmm.
So it deserves that respect, but and we also take pride in that we're not the worst on the
Right.
list, because then there's other schools in the area where it's like nobody really talks about those
Yeah,
places.
yeah, no, I think we're in
We're not considered
similar
one of the big
positions.
3 or 4 in the area.
Yeah, we're in similar positions in that respect, I'd say.
Yeah,
I'd say. But I
definitely
think
in the
yeah,
mid tier. In the mid
yeah.
tier.
I think Australian kids takes a little more pride in their schoolworks because like there's not a lot of partying. There's not as much partying and stuff because there's not that campus feeling, especially for our school. Our
Hmm.
school is just a bunch of big buildings in the city downtown. So so it's hard to say
Right.
that we have a lot of like extrinsic like activities just other than hanging around the school, getting food with friends, studying. Like it's not a lot. You can obviously do stuff, outside, but then that would be a separate circle for you. So I would say in that respect, there's not that group feeling. Like I feel like everyone's more individual in university, where
Yeah.
people have different classes and oh, you're in a couple of my classes. Hey, what's going on? Right?
Right.
It's not like America where you have this is my dorm room roommate. We hang out
Right.
every day, and you know that's it.
Yeah, I think some of this might get messy because we are also talking about like the difference between like a more urban style, campus education versus, maybe more.
Yeah,
I'm assuming there's college towns as well in Australia, or no?
I mean, uh, for, I think most universities we have are all like like
city.
proximity wise pretty close to the city, regardless of
Because
the
that's where
size of the
everything's going
city.
on. That's where
Yeah, right,
culture and
right.
jobs
Regardless of the
are.
size. Yeah, regardless of the size.
Hmm.
Most universities are all pretty close to the city.
I wonder if that's a unique thing for American universities to be located sometimes intentionally away from city centers. It's
That's
almost like you.
interesting,
It's
actually.
almost like
Right.
you go off to college. It's almost like a retreat away
Yeah,
from like
yeah, yeah. That's
the
actually
busy
interesting.
life. You go and you
Right,
study,
right,
in quiet solitude, which is
right.
so. The structure of education has changed so much that that's just not how it is anymore. And these college towns have actually become big economic centers on their own, just because the
Yeah,
universities get so much money pumped into them,
yeah,
whether it's research or whatever, and then the you know
yeah. I
students
don't
and
think
faculty
Australia have
support the
enough people for
businesses.
that. I really don't think Australia got enough people to have a college town. So
Yeah. Sometimes it's comparing apples to oranges, just because I
yeah,
always forget how big the United States actually is.
yeah.
I mean, it's only what, it's over a
It's
little over
big, but also you have the
200,000,
people to fill it. That's the thing as well, right?
right?
Whereas Australia is big, Canada is big. You can't stuff people in half of the areas, or more
Why?
than half, like for Canada, right?
I mean, this might sound like an ignorant question,
Yeah,
and I'm almost embarrassed that
yeah,
as an American I don't know the answer.
yeah,
I mean, I could give a rough answer of why is America so much bigger in population than Australia and Canada and these other places.
yeah.
Beyond
I,
just
honestly,
be like if I was gonna give like a basic answer, I would say
yeah,
like, oh well, there was just a lot of economic opportunity here at the time, and
yeah,
we had our doors open to immigrants
yeah,
and for a while,
yeah,
and this is what happened. But
yeah,
beyond that, I don't really have a reason for
yeah.
you know
It is interesting in that sense, right? Because you
yeah.
guys have 400 million, and then Australia have like 25.
Yeah, it's massive. It's a huge difference. But
Right.
but by land mass,
It's
is
not that big of a
Australia?
difference.
Yeah, it's almost the
It's smaller.
same.
It's smaller.
Australia is
Well,
smaller.
like Canada's bigger than America. Canada
Is it?
have yeah,
Is it like
way
number
bigger.
two
Two,
in the
yeah.
world?
America's number three. Russia, Canada, and
Russia,
then
Canada,
USA, and then fourth
USA,
China.
Australia, China's
China,
fourth.
yeah, and then Australia's like in the top six, so it's pretty big
Yeah.
as well.
Huh.
So yeah, it is actually interesting to think about a little bit, like how you guys can stuff so many people in there. It's
Yeah.
like
And because like yeah, it's like the no matter where you go, this is something that I've found in the States, like because I've traveled around a lot of the country,
yeah,
and it just seems like there's people everywhere you go. Even if you're in like even out west, where in like the desert, and but there's still towns.
yeah,
There's still these little there's telephone wires no matter where you go.
yeah,
um you're gonna see signs of life pretty much across the whole
yeah,
country, and very few spots in America are truly isolated
yeah.
from
I think we don't think about that because we lived in suburbs when we grew up, right?
right.
We don't know about the city, or frankly, in a way, like the parents probably trying to kept us away from it in a way, almost, right? So
Yeah.
we don't understand, I think, how much people stuff into like a big city and how big they actually are and stuff. I think
Right.
we just understood our area, and everyone have a big house in the suburbs, but we don't really understand other areas where there's a lot more people.
Hmm.
So
Well, another broad question,
yeah,
going back to Australia.
yeah,
Um, I guess what because you've lived in China, you've lived in
Hmm.
the United States.
Hmm.
What makes Australia unique that you could probably say doesn't really exist or, you know, happen anywhere else? You know, is there anything that makes it unique versus Canada or, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I think I would I would like to think of maybe Australia as a similar to California, right? Where there's this beach culture.
Hmm.
Going to the beach is pretty regular. Like it's like a pretty regular activity for everyone. Whereas in America, unless you're living in Miami and Florida or California, you don't have that much opportunity to just say, "Hey, we're going to the beach," right?
Yeah,
Because I mean, I remember I went on a holiday during spring break one year to go to Miami and Florida, just in general, and then like going to the beach with for us was like a big deal.
right.
Whereas here, like after this pop, actually I can't go today because the weather sucks. But just like in theory, it is just 30-25 minutes drive away from me, so that's
That's
pretty
pretty
unique.
cool.
At least maybe not unique, just uh, in the sense that nowhere else has that culture, but
Right.
unique in the sense that at least from where we used to live in America, that's very unique.
Hmm.
So
Do you think that culture? I mean, I look at a map of Australia and I see most of its major urban centers are near a
yeah, the
coastline,
coast. Yeah,
whether that be on the west side or the eastern side. I think what is it, Canberra
yeah,
is kind of is the only one that I know is
yeah.
like kind of in the middle or not
Well,
so
Canberra is
close.
inside of New South Wales.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'd have to
it's
look at a
literally
map. I
like a
haven't.
special. Yeah, it's like DC. It's
Okay,
inside another
right.
state. So
Yeah. So that's interesting. Do you think like is the climate on the western side still
it's pretty
warm
similar. They're all
enough
pretty
to
similar.
be
Yeah,
beach
other than
culture and all that?
Tasmania, which gets pretty cold. Not even sub-zero, but like pretty
Hmm.
cold. Everywhere else is pretty similar. Whereas you get two seasons. You get summer and you get rainfall seasons, or like a little colder, a little chilly. You don't have a heat. You don't. There's no central heating system at home, so you kind of gets cold. It gets cold a little bit, but then it's only for like 2-3 months, and then the rest of the year is pretty okay. It's pretty okay. So yeah, I mean, also in the middle of Australia, it's a desert, so no one can really live in the desert, unfortunately.
Where all have you
So
traveled in
in
Australia?
Australia,
Yeah. Where all have you
honestly,
been?
not a lot of places. I've gone to Queensland once.
Where's
Um,
Queensland?
just up north, so even more Miami, even closer to Miami. Like it's like a very holiday vibe. Like
Okay.
one of their cities is literally called Gold Coast. That's the city I
Okay.
went to, and like it's just vacation spot. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I went to the surrounding cities like near Sydney, but that's about it. Didn't really go anywhere.
Never been to Melbourne.
Nope, nope.
You plan to go
Melbourne.
sometime?
Yeah, I mean eventually. I mean with this outbreak, Sitch, probably not for a while, right?
How far is it to fly or drive?
Like maybe couple. I know driving is 9 hours
Okay.
somewhere there, but I think flying is maybe like two or one. Yeah, something like that. It's not too bad.
Would you say Melbourne is the other like rival city with Sydney or no?
Yeah, yeah, like size
Yeah.
wise for sure. But
Yeah.
then Sydney is still bigger. Sydney is still the
The
most like developed.
What do you call people from Sydney?
I don't know. I don't know.
Sydneyites?
No idea.
Do people from
No,
Sydney shit on Melbourne at all, or not really?
I think I think I'm pretty sure down in Victoria, just in general, there's more labor, like more factories and like there's more working class down in Melbourne.
Mm.
And I think Sydney is a little different in that
So
sense.
Melbourne might be like Chicago, while
Yeah,
New York is like Sydney.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Kind of
That's the
like
best
that.
example I
Yeah,
can come up with.
yeah. That's
It's like
fair.
the second city.
Yeah,
It's like the little
yeah.
brother.
Sydney is still the thing,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So yeah, well, it's not too bad, I guess. It's pretty big.
All right. Well, um, another question.
Yeah,
What are the biggest pros of living in Australia, and what are the
biggest
biggest
pros,
cons?
right? Let's
So start with
see.
the pros.
Um, Pros, I would say better weather compared to Ohio. Don't have to shovel snow in the winter.
Yeah.
I mean, like obviously people in Australia don't really think about that. It's like whenever it's raining, they're just complaining, right? But excuse me, but yeah, like in all fairness, their weather is pretty nice. It's sunny most of the time, and it doesn't get really cold. So, and then there's a lot of great like areas with a lot of good natural just nature around all around. So that's one pro for sure. Like where some of the stuff that me and you we weren't really able to discover because we didn't know it then. But I went around to a lot of like different national parks around the area, like the greater
Hmm.
Sydney area. That's maybe drivable in within 2 hours. Some of them are pretty great, like pretty stunning. And yeah, let's see what are other pros. It's hard to think about it because I'm so used to Sydney now. It's
Yeah.
I stopped thinking like I'm not from here.
Right.
Right? Whereas I can have a conversation with other university students about suburbs and stuff because I
Right.
pretty much know them all. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, um, I don't know. Like, that's kind of the only pros I can think of. Not, I can't think too many. Just
What's
because,
the
yeah,
you mentioned that now you can kind of like talk to people about like the suburban stuff.
yeah,
So is
yeah,
that like the suburbs outside of Sydney?
yeah. Like different other cities. Like it's
What are
kind
the
of like
big
the
ones?
relationship between Dayton and Centerville.
Right.
It's like that type of
Just a
relationship. Yeah.
bigger area than a
Yeah, like in Center, we still call Centerville a city, but then it's not really a city, right?
right.
So there's there's a few areas that's kind of say like say for example Cincinnati versus Dayton. Cincinnati is bigger,
Right.
and then Dayton a little smaller. There is another one to the west of Sydney called Parramatta. That's also pretty big. But then yeah, other than that, everything else is just smaller cities. Even though some of them have pretty tall buildings, but they're just still smaller. So yeah, it's kind of like it's similar. It's similar if we just gave Ohio some trains and stuff.
Right.
Put some trains and some public transport in Ohio. It's not
Well, because
dissimilar.
I'm kind of thinking less in terms of Ohio, but more in terms
Yeah,
of Chicago.
yeah,
Because Chicago has a bunch of suburbs that are
yeah,
literally called the burbs.
yeah,
And the and there's stereotypes sometimes depend like that are associated with certain people from certain suburban
yeah,
areas. For
yeah,
example, people from Naperville are
yeah,
usually considered very rich, kind of
Yeah, we have
City.
that too. We have that too.
What's the suburb that the rich kind of, you know, uppity people come from
I would say, and just in
in
proximity
Sydney?
to downtown Sydney,
Yeah,
would be up north.
up north.
Yep, across the Harbor Bridge. Like from that up, obviously there's some like literally is across from Sydney, like the Opera House that are like houses, but those are like you can't buy them. Like that's too expensive,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, just in general, more up north, there's more wealthy people. And
Do
then
people
if you
usually
go to
take trains
yeah,
into the
yeah,
city?
yeah, trains, buses, ferries. Yeah, we have ferries.
Yeah,
That's
that's something totally unique, I think, to
yeah. A lot
not
of people
totally unique to
take
Sydney,
ferry. Yeah,
but
take
it's pretty
ferries to
unique.
work and stuff. So that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
We took I remember taking the ferry
yeah, yeah,
when I visited and
yeah,
when we were both in Sydney.
yeah,
And I remember I don't remember what inspired me, but we were on the ferry and I saw like the captain or one of the
yeah,
workers that like
yeah,
worked in the control room where they
yeah,
were driving the
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
like go up the stairs and close the
yeah,
door, and he had his
yeah,
whole like uniform on and everything.
yeah,
And just on a whim I asked, "Hey, can I go up there? Like, can you
yeah,
show me up there?" And he was like,
yeah,
"Absolutely not." He was
right,
like, "No." And that's just one memory I have,
yeah,
getting rejected.
yeah. I do remember the ferry ride. It's actually it's actually pretty similar to the like the ferry stuff we did in Hong Kong as well. It's pretty
Yeah,
similar
very
format,
similar.
right? Yeah, where it's pretty casual. It's not really something that people like think too much about, whereas more
Hmm.
as an experience, rather people just think of it as something regular, like people do day to day,
Right.
which is cool. So
I think, and kind of kind of in line with this, like, me being a stupid kid asking if I can go up and see the, control room.
yeah,
For some reason, I think that kind of goes into another kind of topic where, um, when we went to Australia, I
mm-hmm.
felt like it was a bit more of like a civilized. I don't know if civilized is the right word, but like a more civilized culture where generally if you're being loud and obnoxious, that's not
Yeah,
nobody that's not
yeah,
cool. People don't appreciate that.
yeah,
Um as opposed to just growing up in the States, and I don't know, there's a certain amount of just kind of, I don't know, horseplay is the
yeah,
word I can say, that is accepted, I feel
yeah,
like, but I feel like it's becoming less and less accepted. And maybe this is all just conjecture. I have no proof
yeah,
of this,
yeah,
but I feel like the states, at least the urban areas, are going in the direction of some of these other countries like Australia, like even Hong Kong.
yeah,
Um I just it's a vibe. It's just a
yeah.
feeling that I have where it's like there's less just I don't even know what to call it, but
It's in general it's more quiet,
more
right?
quiet. It's
Yeah,
more mannered, more well mannered.
yeah.
Um, but in terms
I
of the
mean that.
states, I don't think it's
Yeah,
manners because you're being considerate. I think it's
yeah,
having manners because you're somewhat scared to stand out in a
right.
way that draws attention to
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
It's, to me, it's more of a fear thing. It's not necessarily just like wanting to be considerate of other people.
yeah,
Um, but that's just my feeling.
yeah.
So I don't
But you
know.
think
Did you
you
feel
think
that at all in a difference when you moved to Australia, that there was that more well mannered culture, or no?
I mean, I I think when I first came to Sydney, I almost felt like it was obviously my comparison wasn't actually, you know what? I would say you are right in that sense, at least somewhat. Because I do remember, obviously, you know this, but after I graduated, me and my family would tour the whole pretty much East Coast other than Boston. We did Philly, New York, with DC, and a few other cities around, right? Pittsburgh, we did that one as well. But just I do remember in those cities, I think people are a little more friendly than in Australia. And I that's how I see it as well. Is you see it as manner, right? I see it just as being friendly.
Hmm.
I felt like Americans are much friendlier than Australians,
Hmm.
at least from my experience in Sydney.
Well, yeah,
But that
that
could just
flips it a little
be,
bit. Yeah.
yeah, that could be just a virtue of the amount of tourists they get. Thereby,
Hmm.
the more you have, the less extrinsic, there's less nuance, and they don't
Right.
really think about tourists anymore. Whereas in America, say maybe if you're in Pittsburgh or Philly, like people are still pretty friendly. I'd say. I would
Maybe
say
they're
people
just
are still pretty
they're
friendly.
more open and interested
Yeah,
and
people want to talk more,
yeah.
right? Just random people, like on
Right.
talking. Whereas, say like you and the waitress at a restaurant talking,
Right.
or a waiter talking, right? Whereas this in Australia, you don't get that as much from my view. Not
I've
that
definitely
there
I
aren't any, but it's not as much as.
Mhm. I'm glad you said that because I actually think that you might have said it better than I did because like I've watched videos and I've met people like from
Yeah,
Europe who say that Americans just are they think they're so friendly and that they just want to talk and
yeah,
they'll start talking. Americans will start talking to them and it will be like they've known each other for 10 years even though they're just meeting for the first time, and they'll go into like you know um just like how was your day, and then straight from how was your day to like they'll start talking about their grandparent or something like
yeah.
kind of intimate, where it's they're not used to that kind of intimacy and conversation. um I guess what I feel like is that living in America, I feel like that is quickly going away. I feel like people are maybe we used to be more friendly. I mean, whatever, but and there's definitely still communities that are like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But the more maybe the internet is a reason to blame. But the more expansive and global and connected
Hmm.
communities become and feel, that sense of intimacy, that friendliness at the grocery store dissipates. And I feel like that's just rapidly dissipating, just in my 20 years
Yeah,
that I've lived here. Because I feel like people don't appreciate that as much. Like if I just ask somebody
yeah,
on the street or whatever, it's not the norm.
yeah.
It's
Maybe, yeah. It's also just faster lifestyles in general, right?
right.
I think especially for us, you know if we still had the same lifestyle we had in Ohio, yeah, I think we'd be more inclined to talk to people just because we had the time, right? Where now, if
Right.
you're going from A to B, you're in a rush, you know, you want to listen to something, you want to listen to music, podcast, something on the train
Right.
instead of talking to someone, like, yeah, that's normal. Or for them to
Yeah.
do work, study, I think, yeah, it's just maybe it's also just we're all very busy, you know, as well. So,
Yeah, I think with the current state of things, that small town America kind of feeling is
yeah.
definitely it's decreasing.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I'm
and so
sure
that
other
that
Australian towns are like that as well.
right,
Like that small town feeling. I'm sure that's there across the globe in all smaller cities, just
right.
because, it's not that many people, but
But even like, I feel like it's a little bit deeper than that, because even like a city like Chicago, um, I've just seen like videos and I've seen pictures from maybe 20, 30 years ago. And even visiting here when I was a kid, just feels like things have changed. Things like the
yeah,
culture has definitely changed, and I feel like it's
yeah,
changed in a way that it feels like like when I visited Hong Kong
hmm,
and even Australia, and I feel like it's going more in that direction of those larger urban areas.
yeah,
I don't know. Just a
yeah.
thought.
That is.
Yeah. So what do you think? Is that a good place to wrap up for today?
Yeah, I mean, I think we gave people a pretty okay overall, I guess, view of the differences, and obviously we derogated into a lot of other different topics as well, which I think was really cool.
Well, yeah, man. Good luck with the rest of your week.
Yeah, for sure. You too, man.
All
Talk to you
right.
next week. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.